Many of those workers have said to me and communicated, stay out until you get the funding for the wall. These federal workers want the wall. The only one that doesn't want the wall are the Democrats.
So that was on Tuesday, and remember I said that's kind of like his friend Jim, who he always said went to Paris and kept saying, well, Jim is saying Paris doesn't even look like Paris anymore. Seemed like he was making it up, right? Well, that was President Trump claiming that federal employees were telling him, keep the government shut down. We're on your side. Well, 2 days later, the president is now claiming that those same federal workers under financial stress from the shutdown are not even members of his own party. He tweeted, quote, do the Democrats realize that most of the people not getting paid are Democrats? He's confused. What a surprise. Just 17 days ago, President Trump, remember this, he said that he'd take the mantle of a government shutdown, that he would take the blame of the government shutdown. And there were a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill that were really upset because they knew how this was going to end. They knew that the president's reckless words, they knew that the president being baited and looking foolish in front of Chuck Schumer would end up hurting them in the end. And according to new polling left and right, those Republicans were right, and so is Donald Trump. Voters are blaming him for the shutdown. In a Reuters Ipsos poll conducted after the shutdown began, found that 47% of Americans hold Donald Trump responsible, while only 33% blame Democrats in Congress, and about 7% blame congressional Republicans. Meanwhile, just 35% of Americans say they support Congress putting up the money for a border wall. That's about where it's been for a very long time. Only about a third of Americans. 25% of Americans said they support Trump shutting down the government over his wall funding demands. That means 75% of Americans do not. Now, in a CNN poll conducted earlier this month, 57% said they oppose building a wall, while 38% favor it. But the number in favor fell to only 33% if the wall is built without money coming from Mexico, as the president is currently demanding. This, as Americans who view immigration as a good thing, set a record high. Now get this. In June, Gallup found that 75% of Americans support immigration, including majorities of all party groups, with 65% of Republicans and Republican leaners viewing immigration positively. Yamish, you look at all these polls. I want to start with that last one, because not only is immigration more popular today than it was the day that Donald Trump took office, Obamacare is in its glory days. Forget about making America great again. America's already great. Donald Trump is making Obamacare great again and making it more popular than ever.
Well, I think what we learned over the last couple of years is that people actually like having pre-existing conditions covered, and people like being able to keep their children up until the age of 26 on their health care. So I think Obamacare, when you take away the name Obamacare and say it's the Affordable Care Act, or you just say it's American health care, people have completely different ideas of what they like in their personal life. I will say this about immigration. There are a lot of people who also, I think, after President Trump was elected, realized that some of their family members, some of the people that they like to see on maybe at the coffee shop, or their coworkers, they were immigrants, some of them deported. We've seen stories where people were Trump supporters and then their spouses were deported. So we also see that people are now personally feeling the effects of the Trump administration, and of course the child separation program. I think that was something that changed the idea of what immigration was. Even people who like Donald Trump were saying, well, we can't separate mothers and their children. That's a step too far. Of course, President Trump doubled down on that policy, but the courts have really dealt the Trump administration over and over again losses. I think now when it comes to this shutdown, President Trump was banking on the idea that he would like to have a conversation and an argument over immigration, that he could stake his reputation on shutting down the government over immigration. And I think what we see and what he's realizing is that that's not a good position, and that Nancy Pelosi is going to make his life even harder than it was in 2018. So we now see a president who's trying to shift shift blame to Democrats. But guess what? Only Donald Trump was here in D.C. over this holiday break, not Republicans, not Democrats. So that physically means that he owned the shutdown.
Yeah, he did, and he said he'd take the credit for it, Kurt, and certainly he's taken the credit for it. And boy, I'll tell you what, it does seem, in the immortal words of Rick Wilson, everything that Trump touches dies if you work for him, but also everything that he opposes becomes more popular. Think about it. Obamacare more popular than ever. Immigration more popular than ever. And even yesterday, I saw the news that the most admired Americans, you know, it usually would be Billy Graham and Betty Ford when I was growing up every year. Well, this year, who was it? Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. We really are seeing this backlash that Republicans experienced at the polls back in November. We see that continuing. And tell me, you worked on the Oversight Committee, as did I, about 800 years ago when I was in Congress. What's it going to be like, not only for Donald Trump, but for Republicans, as that Oversight Committee starts investigating, and we know Elijah Cummings will, the death of those children at the border, the policies that have led to separating thousands of children from their parents, and of course, all of Donald Trump's finances. What's the next year going to look like?
Well, we're starting to see some of that already take shape, Joe. And just in the last week, Elijah Cummings, the incoming chairman of the Oversight Committee, sent 51 letters to the Trump administration, a number of document requests, including to the Secretary of Homeland Security about the child deportation and the child separation policy. We saw just last night a number of the congressional committees send a joint letter telling the Trump administration to save all their documents, all of their emails, all of their notes so that they can get all the information right away. They've given them until January 11th to produce those documents. And if they don't, if they resist, if they obstruct, you're going to start seeing subpoenas being issued by the new Democratic majority. And Joe, this is what the American people wanted. They wanted this check and balance. We've had 2 years now of an unchecked administration of the Republicans on the Oversight Committee, the same Republicans, by the way, that couldn't wait to talk about oversight when Barack Obama was president, who issued more than 100 subpoenas when I was there working at the Oversight Committee of Barack Obama. Those same Republicans didn't do anything for 2 years, didn't issue a single subpoena to Donald Trump, all the while different types of corruption. We saw what happened with Scott Pruitt, saw what happened with Tom Price and his private travel, seeing the controversies with Ryan Zinke that have chased him out before the end of the year. They didn't do anything. Well, the American people decided in November they want action, they want oversight, and that's what they're going to get.
Isn't it incredible? Not a single subpoena over the first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency, when there probably should have been a record number going out to try to investigate all the things that seem to be going wrong in that administration and with the president himself. Still ahead, Trump's ever-moving goalposts on who's going to pay for the wall. Or should we say the steel slats? Morning Joe's coming back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.